Welcome to Taking Care of Business on News Talk 1180 KERN for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock on Saturday. And for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 Carry, the Christian station. We're now on 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and also 3 times on the internet on knookmedia.net, serving Richmond, Oakland, and the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm Marty Pay. Your host is Clay Koerner. Our producer is Greg Held. I wanted to thank our libertarian candidate for VP, author of the Ultimate Obama Survival Guide, friend Wayne Root, for coming in last week. Wayne sure calls it the way it is, Clay, doesn't he?
I like Wayne, but you got to keep your ears open because he's like a speedboat.
Oh, yeah, he's going 100 miles
But
a
he sure knows what's going on, doesn't
he? Yes, he does. And then we had a friend of mine, Larry Pickett, on, who gave a good explanation of starting a small business. So that was a fun show for me. I'm going to start the show. Oh, actually, in the second half, we have sports writer and a great author of a great book called Sound and Fury, Dave Kindred. But in our first guest, introducing our first guest, I want to start out with a little scenario here, okay, that he sent us. A well-financed terrorist cell enters America. It operates, launching a deadly incendiary sabotage campaign against weapons factories and munitions depots. That's what they want to do. They want to have a bomb that rocks the U.S. Capitol building. The nation's richest man, a pillar and symbol of the military-industrial complex, is severely wounded in a bold assassination attempt. Anthrax cultures are cultivated in a lab just 6 miles from the White House. And then they're going to be used in a biowarfare attack against targets in 3 cities. The president's informed that attempts will likely be made to blow up waterworks, electric lights, and gas plants, subways, and bridges in cities like Los Angeles. It sounds like a movie plot, doesn't it? Yet these events are not the galloping beats in some fanciful Hollywood plot. They are the linchpins of a true story filled with its own high destiny. You ready for this? Only the year is 1915. Our guest to talk about this is the author of a great new book, Terror Now and Then by Howard Blum. Howard, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Thank you. Good to speak with you.
That is a great scenario, and that's, I'm a history buff. I was going to be a history teacher. I knew nothing about this. So this was about to happen in 1915?
Yes. The reason I really first got involved in writing Dark Invasion, and Dark Invasion is the name of the book, is that I read an article in the CIA's Journal of Intelligence, and the CIA wrote this article just after 9/11, and they said the first attack of the homeland really occurred back in 1915, and a band of New York City police cops, headed by a Captain Tom Tunney, that was established to hunt these terrorists down. That was the first beginnings of Homeland Security.
Wow! So basically, the Homeland Security concept is about 100 years old.
Yes, it is. I mean, it started off with Tom Tunney. Tom Tunney was an Irish street cop in New York. He walked a beat in Brooklyn. He was picked by the New York City police chief to form this team, and he starts looking for men who can do the job. He wants men who can speak German because they're going to have to do undercover work. He gets a sharpshooter. He gets a tough guy, a man he describes as big as the Woolworth building, which at that time was the biggest building in New York City. And he gets men who are good at surveillance. And then these 12 men go out and try to track this well-funded German terrorist ring, men who are using anthrax, bombs, and bullets, and bring them to justice. And, today we have Homeland Security Network that has 240,000 people, an annual budget of $98.8 billion. That's with a B. And it all started with Tom Tunney's 12 men. Wow,
incredible. So let me ask you this. I'm going to paint the scenario again for people that may not know history. You've got World War I that goes from 1914 to 1918, and we get involved in 1917. So here it is 2 years before we get involved. It's kind of tipsy one way or the other as far as which way we would end up going. I mean, why would the Kaiser risk this in 1915? Because if it's exposed, then it's all the more reason for us to join the English side of the war.
That's a very good question. The Kaiser's spy masters had to make 2 decisions. First, they had to stop the United States from sending war supplies, arms and ammunition to the Allies, which we were doing. there was a British blockade around America, and we were unable to send to the Germans. But of course, the ships going to the Allies could get through. So that's what they wanted, to sabotage those munitions. Secondly, they wanted to break the will of America. They thought America was the sort of country that if you start letting off anthrax in subways, blowing up bridges, America would back down. They didn't understand, I think, the American character. They didn't realize that "don't tread on me" was deeply ingrained in the American outlook. And it was a major, major miscalculation. America was enraged by what was happening. And when Tom Tunney's men built the cases, I document in Dark Invasion about what the Germans were doing, President Wilson had no choice, really, but to go to war. He felt personally betrayed by the German ambassador and by the German diplomats in America.
So tell me, what's different between then and today? They're still trying to break our will.
They're still, yes, and you again, that too is an important question. The similarities are the same, and the problems are the same. In 1915, when this all happens, the U.S. federal government really can't cope with the matter, and they're not sharing their information with cities like New York. So the New York City police chief says, "I've got to do this on my own." The U.S. federal government was learning a bit about the German network from the British. The British had a very sophisticated spy network, but they weren't passing these on to the New York City cops. So he sets up his own network, the New York City police chief, using Tom Tunney. Then today, just after 9/11, the New York City police commissioner, Ray Kelly, has the same reaction. He says, the feds aren't telling us anything. We were caught totally unprepared. We've got to set up our own intelligence agency. He gets a former director of the CIA's Directorate of Operations, and he brings him to New York. He sets up his own intelligence network. He sends New York City cops to 12 different cities around the world to be the eyes and ears for New York. And he figures this is how we will know what's happening. This is what New York has to do. And then after the Boston Marathon bombing, he has a press conference, and he's filled with anger that the FBI never told the Boston police about these suspects. They had information on them. They never shared it. And he said, nothing has changed. And that's really the tragedy of what happened between 1915 and today. I mean, one thing that you learn from Dark Invasion, I think, is that history tells us that the next terrorist attack will no doubt be coming, and the problem is we have to be prepared for it, and we have to share the information between the various agencies so that our people can be protected.
We're having a conversation with Howard Blum, author of Dark Invasion, 1915, Germany's Secret War Against America.
Although, Howard, I think the next terrorist attack is probably going to be the electronic pulse, which is going to be totally devastating, where 9 out of 10 Americans are going to die within 12 months.
It could be. I mean, but what is so interesting is the weapons get more and more sophisticated. In 1915, when the anthrax attacks occurs, they're working out of a little lab just 6 miles from the White House. They're working out of a basement. They have a couple of test tubes. Today, you can set up mobile anthrax factories all around the world. The U.S. government has talked about 75 different biological germ warfare cultures that can be introduced into this country. And again, when the bomb goes off in the U.S. Capitol building that the spy network brings in, it's just a dynamite bomb. It doesn't do that much damage. Today, you could bring a suitcase with a nuclear weapon into a building, and that could cause real damage. And the opportunities in our open society are so much greater. In 1915, when they were worried about the subways in New York, 375,000 people rode the subways each day. A lot of people. But today, on just a single day, 4.3 million people ride the New York City subways. The opportunities for our enemies are so much greater.
You know, you talked a little bit about the chief of police in New York and all the things he was doing to stop terrorism, yet he was highly criticized for all the things he was doing, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. I mean, he was taking it on his shoulders to do this, and he was also authorizing. They were bugging phones. They were having surveillance activities. They felt that they were at war, even though it was an undeclared war. And it's almost like the Patriot Act today. Some people criticize that, say we've gone too far. The NSA is listening all the time. We're in this same situation. But it's not so much the information that we gather, it's how we use the information. And in 1915, the information wasn't shared, and today it's not being shared also. A case in point, there was the man who shot J.P. Morgan, Eric Munter. He originally was a Harvard professor. He poisoned his wife while at Harvard and escaped this murder charge, goes down to Mexico, assumes a new identity. He gets back into the United States, is teaching at Cornell, and while he's teaching at Cornell under this new identity, he joins the German network, and he's the one they use to first plant the bomb in the U.S. Capitol building, and second, break into J.P. Morgan's home in Long Island and shoot him.
Amazing. When we come back from the break, I want to talk a little about Bradley Cooper and his involvement in this.
Sure.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.